my podiatrist tells me a story about a dog. He says things to me like, there's no reason why you should feel any pain, and I'll take care of everything. Why wouldn't I like seeing him? I first went when I had something called a plantar wart beneath my big left toe. I thought it was called a planter's wart.
A lot of people think that, and they're wrong. But you're a writer, you're interested in words, so you should know the truth.
He draws me a diagram of the part of the foot called the planta.
I don't want you to imagine people walking around with shovels in their hands, putting plants in the soil, because it's not the truth.
I was glad to learn what he had to tell me. Now I correct other people for his sake and in his name. His daughter plays the French horn in a symphony orchestra, but she's decided she wants to be a vet. To get into veterinary school,
which is already, you understand, very difficult in itself.
She has to take more science courses. She lives in Boston. She told him she would take the courses in the local community college.
Darling, I said to her, veterinary school is very hard to get into. True or not true? She had to say what she had to say. True. So what's the best, and I mean the very best place in Boston to take courses? She said what she had to say, Harvard. So I said to her, you're my daughter, and I want the very best for you, and I can give you the best. So, Harvard. She thanked me profusely. I cannot tell you how profusely she thanked me. She's enjoying her courses very much, though, of course, they're a challenge.
On the bus home, I tried to imagine what it would have been like to have a father who said, I want the very best for you, and I can give you the best. My life would have been wholly different. It's not well known that subspecialist most consulted by women over 40 is the podiatrist. Over the years, many of us have done terrible things to our feet. High heels, pointy shoes, damaging ourselves for vanity, for sex, from fear or from desire, a desire to please whom? When I went to see him because of the plantar wart, he shaved my calluses, which, he said, were painful in places because of my gait.
Now, everybody has a gait. Everybody's gait means something. In your case, problems. I can take care of them.
He shaved the bad calluses with a very sharp knife, a knife that looked as if it would have to hurt. I stiffened thinking of my feet, those tender loaves. I've always liked my feet. Sometimes I think of them as my best feature. My second toe is longer than my first. For the Greeks, this is a sign of beauty. Also, my toes make on the top a fan-like shape that I never look at without pleasure. So I didn't want anything happening to my nice feet. But he said,
you can trust me. I won't hurt you.
I didn't believe him. I was looking at that knife. I waited for the shock of pain, which did not come. More than that, over the next days, I noticed that I was free from, if not pain, then a discomfort that had been so habitual, I had assumed it was part of life. So, of course, I agreed to come back every 3 months to keep myself in the state to which he'd brought me. Besides, he told me stories. It began when I asked him how he became a podiatrist.
Long story. Interesting story, or at least I think it's interesting. Since you're a writer, maybe you'll think it's interesting too.
As he began to speak, his eyebrows, which always had a tendency toward verticality, stood upright like two fuzzy letter eyes. His small mouth, which I had seen in two positions, cheerfully amused in conversation or concerned while holding an afflicted foot, became neutral, a vessel of information only.
It goes back to when I was a child. You'll be surprised to hear it, but it goes back to an accident. So I can give you a background so you can understand. You have to know something about my family. My father was a successful doctor. We were what you might call wealthy, definitely wealthy. We lived in New York. Now, it's not like it is now. One day, in my father's office with him, I was playing, and by accident, a beaker of acid tripped over and burned my leg, right through to the bone. I became a cripple, and I'd been quite an athletic boy. So you can imagine, I grew downhearted, and my father was very guilty because he'd failed to cover the beaker of acid. So he devoted himself to me. He did everything. Built a gym in the basement. We had a brownstone, as I told you, we were wealthy. And hired all kinds of teachers for me, physical education. It was a struggle, but I persevered, and he was with me, urging me on. The thing about him, he was firm but kind. He took me to a podiatrist who took excellent care of me. So I became interested in this subject, starting, of course, with my own case. The rest of my family became doctors, but studies were hard for me. If I were young now, I'd be called dyslexic. But I found the work I love. So you see how everything works out.
I think of his quizzical, cheerful face, but a boy's version, the shock of burning acid, and his poor father. Of all fates, one of the worst, to be implicated in the pain of your own child. I think of the phys ed teachers with slicked back hair, mustaches, sleeveless t-shirts, tights, lace-up shoes. I think of the tutors and the cheerful, quizzical boy struggling to keep up. I think of the brownstone, its shining floors, the hanging chandeliers, the smell of coal and laundry in the basement turned into a gym. On one of my visits, the patient before me has come with a standard poodle. I try to understand what's behind the decision to bring your dog with you to the podiatrist. The dog, unleashed, walks around the waiting room, nosing the magazine rack. I hear his master's voice, the voice of Yankee privilege, but suggesting the Maine woods. Summers with no running water, bilberries for breakfast, a view from the porch of Daddy's camp of half the state. The owner of the dog is a foot taller than the doctor. He tells her he hopes she'll be comfortable, and she says she will be, of course, thanks to your very good work, my friend. I'm sure they aren't friends. Not like he and I are. I'm sure he doesn't tell her stories.
Nice animal.
He says when I sit in the chair.
Very nice animal. I don't do surgery anymore, so I'm glad to have dogs around as long as they're well behaved. And that one is a real prize. I didn't even know he was there.
He says that everything I'm doing for my feet is exactly right, and that the orthotics he made to be inserted into my shoes are working perfectly.
Funny story about a dog. You want to hear a funny story about a dog?
I say yes, I would, very much.
Okay. Every summer, my family went and stayed in a hotel in the Catskills. My father was in New York, except for the weekends, and the rest of the family stayed there all the time. It was an excellent arrangement. Suited everyone very well. Of course, all meals included, and the kitchen was top drawer. Every day, the chef would pack a lunch for me. Always the same thing, a chicken sandwich. He had a way of preparing chicken that I happened to like very much. I would take my lunch and my fishing pole and go down to the dock and fish for hours. Well, one day I'm sitting on the dock, and suddenly at the other end of the dock, there's this very big dog. I mean, she was big. I saw her looking at me, and I looked at her, and she didn't look dangerous, although she was so big. I wasn't afraid. I broke off a piece of my sandwich. She takes it and goes away. After a week of this, one day, after she takes the piece of sandwich, She lies down next to me on the dock. Then she starts walking me back to the hotel every day. One day we run into the owner's dog, a German Shepherd, not a nice animal, a vicious animal. She takes one look at Brownie, puts her tail between her legs, and runs into the kitchen. I called the dog Brownie because she was brown. Even at that time, I had a terrific imagination. Well, the end of the summer came, and I begged my father to take Brownie home, but he said no. She was a country dog, a woods dog. She'd be miserable in the city. She'd pine away. Well, I was miserable, but what can I do? I get in the car and put my head against the seat and cry my heart out. Now, in those days, they didn't have the superhighways of today, so the fastest my father could go was 45 miles an hour. After we'd been traveling about an hour and a half, my father yells out, "Oh my God." We didn't know what happened. "Look out the back," he says, and there's Brownie running alongside of the road, keeping up with the car. So, of course, my father opened the door. The dog got in. She was so big she had to lie full length on the floor, and still there wasn't room for her. She threw up. Then she slept all the way home. Fortunately, we had a townhouse with a backyard, so she could sleep outside. We just left the back window open, and she came and went as she pleased. It wasn't like now with the crime, which is why I live in Westchester. My mother used to worry about me with my lame leg, but she knew she had to give me independence. You have to do that with a boy, and she knew it. So she let me walk to school if Brownie was with me. It was only 2 blocks away, and she watched me out the window. One day, she's looking out the window, and she sees me walking into the street, not paying attention, and the next thing she sees, a truck careening around the corner, and she sees Brownie grab me by the waist and pull me to safety. I still have scars from the teeth marks, but I wouldn't be here to tell you about those scars if it weren't for that dog. She saved my life another time. I was back at the hotel fishing, but not on the dock, by a creek this time. I was wearing waders and again not paying attention because, let's face it, that was the kind of kid I was. I walk into the water to get the fish. I walk in too deep and the mud is very soft on the bottom and I don't have the strength in my lame leg to lift myself up because the boots are full of water. I started to be pulled under. The dog comes in and pulls me out. So that was 2 times my life was saved by that dog. Now I'm going to tell you something you didn't know. Until the 1930s, dogs were not licensed in the city of New York. So one day, the notice comes, and my father, who always did things very properly, makes an appointment with our vet, who's a patient of his, to have the dog examined for a license. Well, we go into the office, and the vet takes one look at Brownie and gets a strange look on his face. Calls my father into the private office. He says, "Who does the dog respond to the most?" My father says, "It's me." The vet says, "We have to put a muzzle on the dog. I have to take some blood."
I don't want to hear any more of this story. I can tell what's coming next. Rabies, and this miraculous dog will have to be put down. I think of the little boy with his lame leg in his too big room in the townhouse where everyone's heels clatter too loudly on the wooden floors.
So I put the muzzle on the dog. She doesn't give any trouble. She'd do anything for me. But she gives me this terrible look when the doctor sticks the needle into her. My father and I sit in the waiting room. We don't know what's happening. Our hearts are in our mouths. Then the doctor comes in and calls my father into his private room. "Doctor," he says to my father, "I don't know how to tell you this, but this animal you have isn't a dog, it's a wolf." A gray wolf.
Immediately, I hear howls, see wild eyes, enormous teeth, huge paws prowling in the moonlight on hard-packed snow that glistens blue and silver. Wolf, Danger and magic, poverty and chaos too. The wolf at the door, wolf in sheep's clothing, crying wolf, life lived at night, remotely, inexplicably.
My father asks if he's sure. The vet says yes. My father says it's the best dog he's ever had. He tells him how she saved my life twice. The vet says, the problem is, doctor, it's illegal to have a wolf in the city of New York. You'll have to take her back to where she came from or give her to a zoo. My father says, doctor, you've been my patient for 20 years. If you want to go on being my patient, listen to me. This dog is a member of the family. I will not get rid of her. I will not separate her from the people she loves or put her in a cage. The vet says, let me make one call. He finds out that he can get a wildlife license for us, which he does. And this is how we get to keep Brownie. Well, we kept her for another 3 years. We'd take her up to the Catskills in the summer. She'd sleep in the woods at night and be waiting for us at the hotel in the mornings. One morning, she wasn't there. We never saw her again. But I knew it was all right. I knew she'd return to her pack.
You don't think she just went into the woods to die? I ask.
She was too young for that.
Perhaps she was killed by another animal?
I believe she went back to join her pack. I'll tell you why. I've made a study of wolves for reasons I'm sure you find obvious. You see, in a pack, only one female, the alpha female, the dominant one, is allowed to mate. If a beta female wants to mate, she has to leave the pack.
You think that's what Brownie did?
Most definitely, yes, I do.
So she left when she was young because she wanted to mate, and then when she got older, she wanted to go back to the family.
I would say so.
It's sort of a story about female desire, then, I say. And what happens when that ends and it's replaced by an urge for conformity? His eyebrows are almost up to his hairline now.
Maybe it's a story about that for you. For me, it's a wonderful story about a wonderful dog. And I have many more stories about this dog that I could tell you. But I won't be seeing you for quite a while because everything you're doing from my perspective is perfect. Just keep doing everything you're doing, 100%.
So good. Thank you, Bebe and Richard. You know, I read that Mary Gordon read from this story at a ceremony when she won the Story Prize in 2008, and she said it was just as it sounds. It was a story from her podiatrist. I didn't come up with it, she said. It was almost verbatim. That's life in New York. I have learned, she said, to listen.